Our meditation song, followed by our meditation and the message, Be Impeccable with Your Word, from our own Margaret Hiller. Our song is Sacred Love.
Is all that you are. You are sacred love. Sacred love is all that you are. Show the way, God, show the way. I want to live in such a state of grace. Lead the way, God, lead the way. I want to live in such a holy place. Such a holy place. You are deepest joy, deepest joy is all that you are. You are deepest joy, deepest joy is all that you are. Show the way, God, show the way. I want to live in such a state of grace. Lead the way, God, lead the way. I want to live in such a holy place. Such a holy place. You are blessed peace, blessed peace is all that you are. You are blessed peace, blessed peace is all that you are. Sacred love is all that you are. Sacred love is all that you are.
As we take our deep breaths this morning, 3 deep, conscious, healing breaths, we feel gratitude for this beautiful assembly of musicians that gather here every Sunday morning to help us open our hearts, help us to feel the blessing of song, letting our hearts and spirits be lifted. We're grateful for this building, this solid building that withstood lots of heavy rain. We give great gratitude for the food downstairs and for community gathered here upstairs. We give thanks for a place literally and in our hearts, a touchstone, a place where we can touch into connectedness and belonging, community, exchange of ideas, looking deeply into the questions of our hearts. Give thanks anytime we come together, wherever that place is, where we can hold one another literally and energetically to open to the powerful sacred journey of being eternal spiritual beings, living in these beautiful physical forms. great gratitude for recognizing in one another the Spirit of the living God. We give thanks for looking into the hearts of our neighbors near and far and seeing their sometimes sorrow, sometimes gladness, holding our neighbors in a consciousness of prayerful thought, contemplating that everyone has journeys that are filled sometimes with the sorrows and sometimes with the joys. We hold one another through all of it. In prayerful consciousness, loving embrace. And we ask what is ours to do, each one of us in our own lives, shining our light more brightly. What else is ours to do? To shine more brightly individually, in our communities, in the world. And take our deep breaths. We've come here to remember. We've come here to remember our eternal spiritual nature. Open up parts of our hearts and minds that perhaps have never been opened. We are involved at this time in sacred evolution of consciousness. We take our deep breaths. We pause to remember our gratitude in the midst of chaos and dilemmas. We call forth the light in our lives, in our hearts, and our thoughts, into our communities, our human family, the world. We go into a moment of silence. I invite each one of us to feel our gratitude for the little things and the big things. Into this reservoir of peace and healing. We speak the names or words representing events that we are surrounding with prayer, love, names and events that we are holding in prayer now. And speak that out loud. Our neighbors in Columbia and Charleston, the Myrtle Beach area, so we're dealing with the flood dilemmas. People have written in for prayer, called in for prayer. All world leaders, community leaders. We continue to envision that all world leaders will deepen into the awareness that we make our decisions from a place of wanting a world that works for all. That takes a huge consciousness. We continue to hold this vision that it is possible. Bless our human family near and far. We give great thanks for the power of prayer. And we say, so it is, and so we let it be. Namaste. Everybody all together, let's just clear our throats right now. Okay, we got that other one. Tom, would you just kick it up 1 degree? It's feeling a little frigid in here. There we go. Anybody need a blanket? Okay, let's take a deep breath. Ooh, what a week, what a week. Yeah. So, David and I were not happy to miss church last Sunday. I just want to make that clear. We were, however, so happy to have a true Sabbath. We were trying to remember, when have we ever both been in town on a Sunday, not in a church somewhere, and together on a Sunday at home. We don't even know when. Because Sunday is our day to be in a church somewhere. So he's actually in Fort Ritchie, Florida this morning at the Unity there. So we were giving thanks. I don't know about you, but we were warm. I had my potluck pot of soup. And didn't have to cook for 3 or 4 days. And we had Sabbath. So Sabbath is when we pause and we take a deep breath and we feel the gratitude, the gladness, the peace. Pause. Sabbath is a pause. When we come together like this, we pause in our regular activities to come together and do something that people have been doing for thousands of years. Circling up to sing and to comfort one another, to encourage one another, share the food, share the laughter, maybe some tears. Just community. We commune. We have community. The Sabbath. So I trust that all of you have come through the floods okay. Some of you have asked what will we be doing in terms of help with others who haven't. We have our board meeting on Tuesday night. I'm sure that the Red Cross has been a regular recipient of some of our tithes, so I'm sure we'll be looking at that. But speak to one of your board members if you have some ideas about how we'll help. So I'd like to read to you just a brief little paragraph from a little booklet that Roy Eugene Davis puts out about meditation. Roy Eugene Davis, many of you know, has been here at this church twice in the 10 years that I've been here. He's a powerful meditation teacher, and he was a disciple of Paramahansa Yogananda. And he still is, he's still in the body. He doesn't travel like he used to. He has a place in Lakemont, Georgia, a retreat center. This is what he has to say. The period in human history through which we are now passing is characterized by rapid changes in the outer realm, while indications of accelerated intellectual growth and spiritual awakening are increasingly observable. That we are being confronted by effects of powerful evolutionary changes is obvious to anyone who is sufficiently perceptive to examine the evidence. I love the way he writes. So, let's take a personal assessment. Are we sufficiently perceptive to examine the evidence of spiritual awakening going on in the world right now? I look upon the world scene with an abiding sense of wonder. And he's in his 90s now. I want to keep wondering. I look upon the world scene with an abiding sense of wonder, and I am serenely optimistic about our near and distant future possibilities. I am serenely optimistic, he says, about our near and future possibilities. I hope you are viewing the unfolding drama of life with a thankful heart and pronouncing it good. And that's the whole lesson for today. Looking out into the world that certainly holds a lot of chaos or dilemmas crises, and still to be able to pronounce as good the evolutionary shifts that's opening our minds to bigger intellectual understanding and spiritual awakening. It's one of the biggest pieces of my practice to be able to look out into the world and still pronounce all is sacred and everything is working together for our waking up. Does that mean God calls the flood? No, that's not what she said. Does that mean Columbia people or Charleston people had done something wrong and so they got more of the flood water? No, that's not what she said. It does mean that when the floods come, it does mean when the crises hit, it does mean when the dilemmas are upon us, that we practice looking for the bigger perspective of how our hearts will open through it. That's how we pronounce it good. We look for God in the midst of the chaos, or we look for the opportunities of waking up in the midst of the dilemmas. That's what Roy Eugene Davis means when he says, pronounce it good. So we're talking about the 4 agreements for the next few Sundays. You missed last Sunday. We're taking last Sunday, we're doing it this Sunday, we'll catch up, we'll be fine. But there are 4 agreements in this book by Don Miguel Ruiz. It's an older book, about 20 years old. We revisit books, don't we? Just like we revisit old beliefs, we revisit old ideas. We think, wonder if I can see this differently this time. So the first agreement, be impeccable with your word. And then number 2, don't take anything personally. We got that one down pat, right? Yeah. Don't make assumptions and always do your best. Okay, so today we're starting on this 4 agreements. The 4 agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz based his writings on the teachings that he received from his elders and his mentors, based on teachings of the Toltec. The Toltec were scientists and artists and spiritual knowers, ancient ones, teachers, and masters and students. They gathered in this ancient city in near Mexico City, a place, I'm going to see if I can pronounce it, Susan Bowles, Spanish teacher. Let's see if I can do this. Teotihuacan.
Teotihuacan.
Teotihuacan. Ancient city. It was known as, don't you love this, the place where man becomes God. The place where humankind takes on bigger perspective. And I want to propose to all of us that this day and hour that we're living in is the place where humankind becomes God. Now what does that mean? Well, come to church more often. We'll look into it together. What does it mean to become God? The word God means simply creator. What are we creating? Love. Peace. What are we creating? And we're doing it all the time. The wonderful quantum physicist David Bohm, he said, we're either participating in the unfolding of wholeness, or we're participating in the unfolding of fear. And most of us, I'm not saying I do this, but many of us go back and forth many times during the day. Right? You can tell the truth here. We're all friends. Yes, ma'am.
I said actually we are we're opening up and becoming awake and alive to the God that is within us. We're attaching to those energies and we become one with God and as a co-creator.
God being, in unity terms, the one presence. We're not looking for some male figure in the clouds to come down and touch his index finger to ours. It's a nice idea, but the point is it's an energetic presence, energy, divine mind. There are many names to describe this intelligence of which we are a part. Many ways to talk about it. The 4 agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz says, is a way of life so that we can access Happiness and love. It sounds good. How do we access happiness and love? So he says these 4 agreements can help us do that. The reason we need to look deeply into these kinds of ideas is because many of us have been domesticated with beliefs and ideas that may or may not be true. We might have been told or given an idea that no longer makes sense, but we'll keep believing it in order to stay connected with our culture, our community, our tribe. Yeah. So, every now and then it's good to do a review and see if our old beliefs are still working for us. Whether it's religious beliefs, political beliefs, let's stay curious. Like little Olivia. Oh my goodness. I want what the kids are having. They are so full of curiosity. They're so full of wonder. Wonder what's going to happen now. What are we going to do now? That kind of excitement. Where there's an outside dream, Don Miguel Ruiz says. There's an outside dream and we've all collectively created it together. If you don't like the outside dream, then add into transforming the collective agreement of what our world is looking like.
Amen.
We really haven't done that well with continually looking for people or groups to blame for our misery. It doesn't seem to be working. So if I have misery, I need to transform that within myself. So, because sometimes the dream I'm creating feels kind of like hell. Sometimes the dream that I'm creating holds fear or anxiety or regret or rage. That's what my human family, that's what we do together. So we know how to create the outside dream of war and confusion, but what if there's another way we can collectively agree on the way our world looks? And most of us know that that's what we're doing when we come to places like Unity and other gatherings. We're recreating, restoring, regenerating. We're transforming an old dream of hell to a dream of what Jesus called heaven, the kingdom of heaven consciousness. And it's up to us. I got the memo. Jesus sent a memo. He said, I came, I brought the message, now you do everything I did and add some to it. Keep creating the dream of heaven. Don't stop now. Don't stop in the middle of hell. Keep creating the dream of heaven. So, there's an idea called the mitote. Did I say that right, Susan? It's an idea of illusion. It's the idea that we will create concepts and ideas and then have a group agreement that it's totally true, and we will live from an assumption that has no bearing in truth, but we decide that it's true, and that's the place we live our lives from. And can anybody think of an example?
The world is flat.
The world is flat. Did you make it a little more current? We've had a few things since then.
Hey, you didn't say Mars.
But going to Mars, yes, sending a mission to Mars. Goodness, my granddad died thinking that the whole mission to the moon was a complete made-up farce. Yeah, so now we're sending missions to the moon. Not only the moon, Mars. So, you need a very strong will in order to adopt the 4 agreements. Deep breath on that one. You will see the drama of hell disappear right before your very eyes. You know, when David and I lived in Santa Barbara, we had torrential downpours, and in Santa Barbara, that's not so common. And when it happens, it usually means mudslides. And so we were preparing for that. And we laid in bed one night and we listened to the creek out behind our little cottage, and the boulders, giant boulders, were hitting each other like billiard balls. And the mudslides from the mountains came right down through the creek behind our little cottage there in Montecito. And we laid in bed listening to it. Maybe we should have evacuated that, but we stayed. And the next day we went out, and the cleanup was massive. Our entire neighborhood was just covered in mud. And people, you know, their antique quilts and their carpets and their so many things had to be thrown away, just like our neighbors in Columbia and Charleston right now are dealing with. And so there was a lot of dismay, a lot of heartbroken stuff going on, papers and furniture, things. So people had to do massive cleaning. So we got through all of that. It's stinky too, very stinky. There were some dead animals that were washed down the creek. One judge was washed out of his bed, and his wife was not. They were in a double bed together. He was washed out to the ocean. She was not. It's amazing nature. And so it was, you know, the neighborhood, it smelled. So we went through a few weeks of this. And then cleanup was happening, and we began to notice over a period of weeks that there were things coming up in our gardens that we've never seen before. There were beautiful flowers and plants and things thriving and growing fast. All that muck from the mountains, all that mud washed down into our gardens, and we'd never seen these plants before. And over the next few months, the people from UCSB were coming out to our neighborhoods and looking at this botanical wonder that was happening right before our eyes. We lived in this little community that used to be the workers from the great big estates, like the people who worked at Oprah's house. They would live down on this street. Back at the turn of the century, they called it Working Man's Road. So we lived in one of those little cottages, and what we figured out was that people who worked up at the big estates up on the mountain were taking cuttings, exotic cuttings through the years, and bringing them back to their little cottages and planting them in their little gardens, and they've been sitting dormant. And the botanists from the university were incredibly in awe. They had no idea what some of these things were. You see, things sit dormant in the ground. And when the ground is soaked, then those things have a chance to come up, find their way. Something good came out of that flood. We had beautiful gardens that spring. Oh my gosh. But more importantly, what sits dormant in us that gets uncovered in many different ways? How many of us have had dilemmas happen in our lives and it uncovers something for us? Something we need to look at, something we need to heal, something we need to transform. The dilemmas sometimes that bring the floodwaters will uncover for us what we need to look at, heal, transform, reconsider, think about, maybe let go of. Seeing hell disappear right before our eyes, instead of complaining about the flood, we began to give thanks for how beautifully our gardens were growing. That's when we take the drama of hell and disappear it. It's also called prayer consciousness. Seeing the drama of hell disappear. How many of you, your children, your grandchildren call you with some dilemma, a friend calls you with some crisis in their life? Prayer consciousness is being able to hold the energy, but not entering into hell with them. We cannot see wholeness for ourselves or another individual if we enter into the drama of hell. Basic, simple prayer is transforming that drama into something else. We see it disappear and we perceive wholeness and oneness within the situation of the crisis. Is it easy? See Charlene after service, she'll tell you. If you don't think you have strong prayer consciousness, just do an assessment. How quickly can I transform seeing the drama of hell and seeing something else at work? It's a good assessment to do. And speaking of prayer consciousness, oh, look at this. We've got a prayer chaplain training coming up on November 7th. Why is this important? Because our community is increasing. We have people with dilemmas and crises in their lives, in their homes, hospitals, hospice, their families. And so the team is expanding, the prayer team, and people who want to feel inspired to go in and do hospice visits. And a few of you have come with me on those hospice visits, and I love that you want to come. So we're going to do this training. But that's what it is, prayer consciousness. Being impeccable with our word, seeing the crises in the world, seeing the dilemmas, and still being able to speak as if the sacred is unfolding even in the midst of the world crises. Is it easy? No. Is it important? Is it essential? Yes. It's one of the things I put in that list, the category, doing all the things Jesus did and greater, is being able to be in a prayer consciousness where we see wholeness even in the midst of what looks like brokenness. First agreement is most important and the most difficult. It promotes transcending to the level of existence some call heaven on earth. Why would we want that? You know, there's multi-billions of dollars spent every year making movies so we can go and see stories on the screen. Or the reality shows that are popping up like weeds in the universe. I think, do we not have enough reality? That we need another reality? Tell them to come to our house, honey. We like to be entertained. We human beings. We love a good story. We will make it up. So scary. We went to the movies the other day, and every preview was about a horror film. I guess because Halloween's coming up. I have to ask, is there not enough scary stuff going on in the world that we still want to have stories that are so scary? We might want to look at that. We might want to look at why do human beings still want to make the story so scary when we could be creating a story of heaven? I'm just asking. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. And the Word is God. In the beginning, where were you? Where were you in the beginning? It's a good question to let yourself deepen into. Where were you in the beginning? Because that's the trueness of you. The Word is you. You are the Word of divine intelligence, divine presence. You're the Word. You are the Word of the one presence. There wasn't just one Word known as Jesus. We are the Word of Spirit. Your Word is your creative power. So again, another assessment. Do you want to create heaven or hell? And it's such a human tendency to want to complain. Let me tell you how bad it is. What if we started our conversation with, let me tell you how good it is. Let me tell you how good it is. I personally am practicing this as a part of my spiritual practice. Let me tell you how good it is. Because I, like everyone else, I get in an elevator. Did you see the standing water in the parking lot? You think they could have cleaned it up by now? Let me tell you how good it is. My car did not get destroyed in the flood. Oh, Angie now knows about deep puddles. I'm so sorry. But let me tell you how good it is. Angie is okay. To be impeccable with your word. The word impeccable means simply without sin. Using your energy in the direction of truth and love for yourself. In other words, anytime we speak detrimentally about ourselves or others or the world, we are, according to Don Miguel Ruiz, we are sinning. Anytime we speak in a way that depletes life, we are sinning. It's an old word, but it simply means missing the mark, missing the highest perspective. To be impeccable is to be without sin in the way we're speaking into the world. We all have a lot of work to do on this. So we're going to stay for several hours. To be impeccable with your word, and here's the key, to use our energy in the direction of truth and love for ourselves. Simply use our words in the direction of truth and love for ourselves. If we're speaking in that way about ourselves, then we're more likely to speak that way about others and the world. Speak in the direction of truth and love. As if we're shooting an arrow at a target. Send it in the direction of truth and love. I was speaking with Carlotta several weeks ago about, we were at Canuga, and it was about someone whose name I had always heard throughout the years as not being such a great human being. And she looked at me, she said, oh no, that person is incredible, very well respected. I said, really? I never knew. She said, I know, the news doesn't cover that. To be curious and be open to letting our minds and our hearts be filled with this bigger intelligence and this bigger understanding, and to speak in ways that send us in the direction of truth and love. It's simple. Just do it. And I'll watch this video later for me. So, we're running over, and I don't want to because my brother-in-law Bob is here. We have a lot to do today, so I'm going to skip over a few things. I did want to show you this. Charles Fillmore was impeccable with his word. It was his biggest teaching, to speak in ways, think in ways that create life and affirm life and create unity in the world. And this Unity Church in Minnesota erected this plaque on the side of the highway about Charles Fillmore. He was born in St. Cloud, Minnesota, on the Indian reservation there, and this was erected not too far from this place where the log cabin was where he was born. Just a little bit of trivia there that our Unity folks in Minnesota have done. Charles Fillmore, the biggest teaching of unity, is about being impeccable in our thoughts and in our words, because we are responsible for creating the world that we're living in. It's foundational teaching of unity, to be impeccable, to be without sin in the way we think and the way we speak. It's a big practice. So let's take a deep breath. It may be that many of us in this room still have thoughts and even say words that are detrimental about ourselves. So we breathe into that. And in this pause, we make another commitment to speak lovingly and truthfully about ourselves, about others, about our world. We are creating the world through our words and our thoughts and our collective agreements. And so, to be impeccable, we speak in the direction of love. And when we do something else, when we speak in the direction of non-love, we simply choose to begin again. We speak in the direction of love. So we give thanks. And as you take your deep breath, you practice during the week being impeccable with your word about yourself, others, and the world and world events, so that next Sunday you've got all that cleared away, and we can start with don't take anything personal next Sunday. I love you all.